Traditional pasta cooking isn't that hard. You boil a big pot of water, cook your pasta, then you cook your sauce at the same time in a skillet, strain the pasta, and then combine everything together. While this is pretty straightforward, you do need to manage a couple of pots at the same time, and you're left with a mound of dishes in the sink. This year, I worked on a Skillet cookbook, and I was challenged to develop faster, more convenient pasta recipes that trade all those dishes for one skillet without sacrificing flavor. Today, we're going to make 2 fast and delicious skillet pasta recipes, and I'll show you what I learned during the recipe development process. Drop a like, hit subscribe while you're down there, and let's get cracking. First up, no boil skillet pasta. In this recipe, the pasta will cook straight in the sauce, much like it did in our toaster oven video with the baked ziti. Check that out if you haven't yet. There's a link down below. We're going to start off by making a regular old tomato sauce. I'm going to heat a tablespoon of olive oil and 4 minced garlic cloves in a 12-inch regular skillet over medium heat. I'm using stainless steel. You could use non-stick, but you should avoid carbon steel or cast iron, as the acidity of the tomatoes will eat away at their seasoning. Now, we just want the garlic to be fragrant and sizzling. We're not looking for any color here. Brown garlic can have a distinctly bitter taste. So the garlic is smelling great, so it's time to move on to the sausage. I've got 8 ounces here. It's Italian sausage. I'm just going to slit them open and add them straight to the pan. I find the safest way of doing this is just taking a paring knife, putting the tip right through the skin, and then very gently sliding it towards yourself. Now, I'm being so gentle that I'm not worried about stabbing myself. You want to break the meat up with a wooden spoon until it's no longer pink. It'll take about 3 to 5 minutes. For the first minute or so, you'll have to do it pretty continuously. I'm using a wooden spoon with a flat top. Now, this is really the best tool for the job because it helps you get all the way through to the meat right to the pan. For a quick sauce, Italian sausage is such a great staple. It already contains fennel and chili and pepper, so there's no need to add any extra spices. And the higher fat content keeps it juicy, so it won't need a long cook time to get it very tender, which is not the case with ground beef or pork. And the other benefit of using this sort of spoon is you can really scrape away at any bits that might get stuck and burn. So the sausage is no longer pink, it's really broken up to nice little bits, and I can smell the fennel. And next, I'm going to stir in a 128-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, and then half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar. Canned tomatoes often have a bit of a raw, tinny flavor to them, and cooking them like this will eliminate that while concentrating their flavor. Oftentimes we'll add just a little bit of sugar just to balance out the acidity of a dish, and it really improves it no end. If you've got very ripe tomatoes, you wouldn't need to do that, but tin ones normally benefit from that little pinch of sugar. I'm going to bring this to a simmer, and then we're going to cook it for 10 minutes, stirring occasionally until the sauce has thickened a little. So it's been about 10 minutes now, and the sauce should look rather different. The excess water should have evaporated, so its flavor will have concentrated, and it's darkened a bit too. And some of that is the sugars in the tomatoes caramelizing, adding more flavor. Now I'm going to stir in 12 ounces of penne. And we're also going to add 3 cups of water. When you use canned tomatoes and you pour them into the skillet, sometimes you end up with tomatoes left in the can. So the way to deal with that is to add some water to the can, and then you can pour it straight out, and you haven't wasted any tomatoes. So I'm going to stir these together so that everything becomes evenly incorporated. And we're going to increase the heat to medium-high, and we want to bring it to a vigorous simmer. If you want to make this with the full pound of pasta, you can. You just need to increase the water to 3.5 cups, but you will have a very full skillet. So it might seem counterintuitive to stir water into a sauce that I've just reduced, but the reducing stage was to cook and concentrate the sauce while letting the flavor of the sausage and garlic really permeate. I added the water now just to cook and hydrate the pasta. Now that it's simmering, we're going to reduce the heat to medium. I'm going to cover it, and we're going to cook this, stirring occasionally until the pasta is nearly al dente, which will take about 8 minutes. When I first started developing this recipe, I tried cooking it covered until the pasta was fully done, but I found that after I added enough water so the pasta could cook through evenly, the final sauce was watery. So I figured I'd need a second stage to reduce the sauce down. I'll uncover and continue to cook, tossing the pasta gently until the pasta is fully cooked through and the sauce is thickened. So at this stage, I said the pasta is going to be al dente, or nearly al dente. What do I mean by that? Well, when you take a bite of one, it's going to be a little more chewy than you'd really like. And if you look at the cross section, you should see that there's a little ring of uncooked, unhydrated pasta there as well. So I'll continue to cook this for another 4 to 7 minutes uncovered until the pasta's fully al dente and the sauce is thickened. So building in that time range lets you use almost any small pasta shape. So I'm using penne, but you could also use rigatoni, ziti, or fusilli. Now these are all shapes that are easier to stir in the pan than, say, spaghetti. When you're cooking covered, it's an enclosed environment, so the moisture doesn't have anywhere to escape while the pasta cooks. When you uncover it, that moisture can then escape and the food will continue to cook, but the moisture will evaporate, the sauce will reduce, and the flavors will intensify. Okay, so the sauce is looking really great now. You can see that it's really thickened down. It's coating our pasta really nicely. And for me, the biggest thing is how glossy this looks. All that starch from the pasta has been released into the sauce and a really strong emulsion has formed. For conventional pasta recipes, here in the test kitchen, we always tell you to reserve a portion of the starchy pasta water to create that emulsion in the sauce. Now this just adds another step and creates another dish to wash. Here, it's all happening in the skillet. So this is looking absolutely fantastic. So we're just going to do some last minute seasoning. I'm going to stir in a 1/4 cup of basil and we're going to just check the seasoning for salt and pepper. That fresh basil is so lovely. It almost cooks the moment it hits that hot sauce and gives you its fragrance. Lovely. I'll just hit it with a little bit more salt and a nice pinch of pepper. Oh, this is looking so good. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of grated pecorino. You could use Parmesan as well. Let's eat. You get that immediate velvety sauce. You really can feel it. It's more of a texture thing than even a flavor. And as a result, all of the flavors from the garlic and from the sausage and the basil, they just permeate all the way through that sauce. And you get such a complete bite. And it's so flavorful because the pasta itself has also absorbed some of that sauce too. I actually think you can think of this as less of a recipe and more of a template that you can customize. If you swap out the sausage for anchovies and stir in olives and capers at the end, you have a puttanesca sauce. If you swap out the anchovies for pepper flakes and stir in cream and Parmesan at the end, you have a cream sauce. If you add more pepper flakes and stir in some pepperoncini at the end, you have an arrabbiata. This no-boil skillet pasta is one of my favorite recipes to whip up on a weeknight. It's super convenient with fewer dishes than if I were to make the same pasta in the more traditional way. Now let's check out another skillet pasta recipe that introduces different textures and flavors by searing the pasta instead of simmering it. Our crispy gnocchi with shredded Brussels sprouts and gorgonzola. It's definitely easy to rip open a package of gnocchi, boil them, sauce them, and serve them. But it's way more rewarding to sear them instead. Making your own gnocchi is a bit of a process and kind of defeats the purpose of using a skillet for convenience. So instead, we turn to store-bought, partially cooked, vacuum sealed gnocchi. Now you can find them in the pasta aisle of most supermarkets or online. They last so much longer than fresh. Now refrigeration gnocchi can also be used, but you should avoid frozen because they won't crisp up and tend to get soggy. We're going to start by heating 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a 12-inch non-stick skillet over medium-high heat until shimmering. Non-stick is really preferred here because the gnocchi could stick. You could use carbon steel though. I've got a 1-pound package here. The oil is shimmering now. I'm going to rip open the package. I'm going to add it to the skillet. Like the sausage, you'll want to separate them with a wooden spoon. That way we'll make sure that all of the surfaces get equal contact and nothing sits on top. Once we've got them evenly spaced out, we're going to cook them without moving until they're well browned on that first side. This will take about 5 to 7 minutes. So it's been about 5 minutes. Give it a little stir, have a look on the underside. Start seeing, yeah, perfect, look at that. You get this really lovely browning on it, which gives it this lovely texture as well as that extra flavor. I mean, boiled gnocchi is great, but you really just get one texture. Here, you get multiple textures because you get some crispy bits and some chewy bits on the inside. So I'm just gonna give these a little stir, and then we're gonna cook them for another 2 minutes until they're heated through. You know, if you've got a lot of time on your hands, like I do right now, you can just turn these over individually to make sure that every side gets that little bit of that crispiness. But you don't really need it. You just want to make sure that that first side gets that good sear for that extra bit of texture. All right, these look good. I'm going to transfer these to a bowl. You can even hear their little crispy edges as they fall into that bowl. Man down. They transform into these crispy little hot nuggets with lacy edges and really satisfying chewy interiors. So to complete the meal, we're going to build a dry sauce in the pan. So I'm going to heat another tablespoon of olive oil in our skillet over medium-high heat until it's shimmering, which is already there because the pan's so hot. I'm going to add 1 sliced red onion. And we're going to cook this until it's just starting to soften, which will take about 3 minutes. I prefer red onions in this dish over, say, yellow onions because they're softer, juicier, a little sweeter, and they add a pop of colour too. Now, it's been about 3 minutes and they've changed. They're not fully cooked through yet, but you can see a definite distinction between completely raw and softened. Now for the Brussels. I've got a pound here that I've shredded already. You could buy pre-shredded, slice them yourself with a knife, but I employed the single best thing about a food processor, the shredding disc. It's so quick. I'm going to stir these in. The pan will be quite full here, but they will wilt down. I'm going to add a half teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to toss these around a little bit and spread them into an even layer. And we're going to cook them, stirring occasionally until the sprouts are spotty brown and are just tender. This will take 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, these are looking really good now. I'm just going to kill the heat before they overcook. So during testing, we came to realize that this dish was all about texture and flavor contrasts. If you cook them too much, they turn soggy. Tasty, but less exciting. So now I'm going to stir in 1 tablespoon of white wine vinegar and a tablespoon of honey. So this is going to give us a sweet and sour profile. The Italians call it agrodolce. So simultaneously lighting up 2 opposite taste receptors in our mouths. And that is exciting. It's the same reason that ketchup or cranberry sauce or even a margarita tastes so good. So for some extra flavor dimension, I'm going to stir in a half cup of gorgonzola and 2 teaspoons of minced sage. When I first settled on this combination of flavors during recipe development, I just added the gorgonzola on top. And that way there wasn't really a sauce to bind everything together. So the whole dish just sort of felt like a hot salad. By stirring it in, it turns cohesive and creamy. Okay, so once everything's combined, you should be able to really smell that sage. We just need to add back our gnocchi. Tumble it in, stir it all together. You want to give it a gentle folding motion so that you don't crush any of the gnocchi. Now that we've combined everything together, you really can feel the cohesiveness of the cheese because it's melted and now it just ties the whole dish together. Time to plate. Now my favorite bits are definitely the gnocchi. You want to put those on top so you can sort of see those as the first thing you're going to eat because that is the most appetizing part of the dish. Now I'm going to sprinkle it with some toasted walnuts for a bit of extra texture and some more gorgonzola. So I'm using a mild gorgonzola. It tends to be creamier and so it won't become overpowering as well. And then give it 1 more squeeze of honey. Now these little squeeze bottles are so useful to have in your kitchen. They're so easy to dispense olive oil, honey, vinegar, vinaigrettes. It's really something that's worth having. I am so excited to eat this. Get a big bite. It's so good. You really get those textural contrasts. The first thing you get is the crunch of the exterior of the gnocchi. Then you get a little bit of the crispness from the Brussels sprouts, which haven't been overcooked. You get that chewy interior, those crunchy nuts. The whole thing just comes together. And because we melted the cheese into it, rather than just putting it on top, you have this cohesion that just pulls everything together. It feels like it's one unified dish. Both of these dishes would feed 4, but they can easily be made for 2 just by halving all the ingredients and cooking them in a 10-inch skillet instead. If I cook these dishes conventionally, I'd have a bunch of dishes to worry about. But these 2 pasta recipes came together super easily in 1 skillet. I hope you try at least one of them at home. What's your favorite pasta recipe? Would you make it entirely in a skillet? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and for more great recipes, check out americastestkitchen.com.